Good day and welcome to HTMi's podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Janet Landey. Janet is president of the International Festival and Events Association Africa. She's also the founder of Party Design South Africa and one of the founding members of MBOK, the Events Management Body of Knowledge. Janet, lovely to have you with us.
Thank you. It's been great.
You spent a few days here. You're one of our members of our HILAB board. You also spent 2 days at our research conference, one of our keynote speakers. Today, I'd like to talk to you about two main topics, if I may. One being event decor and design, because you are an event architect. And then go into the subject relating to MBOK regarding event certification.
Great.
Where would you like to start?
Excellent. I think decor is where we did start 33 years ago. And decor is about creating the enabling environment, and that is really critical for any of the events, whether it was the research conference, which had that unbelievable background of the lake behind it. I mean, it was just amazing. And just creating the right atmosphere for all your students, which was just amazing, just to see them in that environment where it is absolutely professional. And those are the things that they're learning here, but also being able to see it being implemented. So really great. So decor is great for me. It's about creating an environment in which you can get your communication message across.
I was listening to your speech at the conference, and you said something about, with events, decor and everything, it's about telling a story.
Absolutely. And that's about an experience economy. It's about work is theatre and every business is a stage. And you literally, when you see your teams here, they're dressed beautifully all the time. You know where you are. The chefs are dressed accordingly. And that's what events and theatre is about. It's about ensuring that the decor environment is able to get that message across. So depending on what you're looking to set. And the other thing on the decor, which I just love, is there's so many opportunities for inclusion of everybody. Little gifts that have come from communities, handmade stuff that have come from people who are working at home. Just really great. I love that on the event decor side.
So what is the secret behind creating a spectacular event? What are all the elements involved in creating the perfect decor?
Do you know, it's pretty much the same as one of the things which we talk about is MBOK, is in the event management body of knowledge. It was project management, which means every event, doesn't matter which aspect requires administration, the HR, the procurement, the time management. It requires marketing, all the elements, the promotions, the sponsorship, the sales. It needs operational stuff. It's got to work like clockwork, the buses, the labels and everything. The risk has to be done, the health, the safety, etc. But the difference between project management and event management is decor, is the design. So there's entertainment, there's food, there's programming, there's themes, there's the decor and all of that. And that really is what it's about. It's just saying, how do you make sure that all those other elements are done? So they're the behind-the-scenes crew that are doing the operations and all of that. But in terms of that design element, that is fantastic. It's the dancing, traditional dancing, it's the food and beverage, how you serve it, where you serve it, and then layers and layers of surprises, layers of detail, and as we say, layers of money and layers of detail, but you can take them on, you can add them on and you can take them off.
It's interesting to say layers of money. What if you don't have the layers of money?
The most important thing is one must never surmise that people don't have the money to spend. So you've got to be able to put it out there and then to be very clear about it, that this is Hollywood, guys. This is everything that you want. But if we don't have the budget, you see all of this behind here, that's not going to happen. Just this over here. So you have to be really clear about it. Our biggest, I think, success thing has to be that we set the table, we set the scene, we do the sketches, so you know that we're both talking the same language. The biggest thing that can happen, challenge, is that you've got one thing in your mind, you're picturing something this big and this wide, and when I'm listening to you, I can see this and this, you know what I mean? So the bottom line is you've got to be able to say, is how do we actually make sure that we can take what you're thinking, what I'm thinking, put it together, graphically design it, set it out, and then on the day there's no mistakes, no surprises. In fact, as I say, let the only surprises on the day be the ones that we planned for our guests, not any of those nasty surprises, you know.
Earlier, this morning you were doing a workshop with the postgraduate event students, and you kept repeating regarding event design, decor, to be creative. If I take a wedding as an example, we do weddings here in the school where the students have the opportunity, of the whole planning, the architects of the event, that every wedding is different. And very often they come and they ask me, what is the budget for the flowers on the table? And, part of the teaching here is also teaching students the financial aspects of event management, how to work within budgets, but also to be creative. And the first thing they say to me is, how do you expect us to create big flower arrangements, with a limited budget? And I always say to them, I never use the word flower arrangements. I use the word tables, decorations, or a centerpiece. Can you give some ideas, besides putting the traditional flower arrangement as your centerpiece? What other types of centerpieces can one create?
I just think typically here when I see the beautiful wood and the trees and the things like that, ideally you can just get bunches of wooden off, the little sprigs and things like that. Spray them white. Do you know what I mean? Put them in, find some glass containers, make them tall above the table. Get a couple of fairy lights. Nowadays, the fairy lights, the tiny lights, the little, the technology is so amazing. And lighting, of course, is really, really special. But there's lots and lots of things that you can do. Sometimes it's not about, as you say, the flowers. Sometimes it's about that single beautiful flower with a stick going this way, for example. There's just so much that can be done.
But if we were going away from flowers, I mean, there's just so many wonderful ideas for that traditional centerpiece.
Well, you can get the most delicious, and you have ice buckets, for example. You can get a delicious ice bucket, beautiful champagne bottle in a beautiful big fat bow, the detail being on there. That brings your colour through, that same colour coming in on the back of your chair, coming in on your napkin detail. We talked a lot today about texture, the senses, feel it, smell it, see it, hear it, touch it. So when you sit down, you want to feel something good on that tablecloth, you want to feel something good on that napkin, you want to play with the napkin detail, you want to be able to smell the beautiful thing, even if somebody's just sprayed a little bit of perfume just before you come in, or the croissant smelling coming out, or whatever it is. So it's really about making sure that all those senses are part of it,
What do you think about edible centerpieces?
Yeah, look, edible centerpieces are great. A lot of people, as you know, are doing the little cupcakes as a sort of centerpiece, which can happen. A lot of people are doing ice. I mean, the ice ones, I was speaking to somebody the other day about, when they're making the ice containers with the few leaves around it, and that centerpiece becomes that ice one. Obviously, you've got to make sure you can collect once it starts to melt, but they're fantastic and effective and can be made in your deep freeze here, Yeah. And that's easy. You're getting one container with a bit of water in it, and you get another container, put it in, weight it down, and you put a few leaves in between, and before you know it, you've got this beautiful rose-petaled bowl. Beautiful. You can even freeze a good bottle of vodka or something in the middle, in the deep freeze, and that centerpiece becomes, it's frozen inside, and the liquor, of course, doesn't freeze.
Yeah, that's true. So it's all about really being creative.
And also, the things, you've got unbelievable people from the East. We've been to, a wedding recently where they folded the most beautiful birds and hanging birds down, just lots of work in terms of paperwork, etc. Blocks, different wood, taking pieces of wood, putting it there, putting different colours on it, bit of moss coming here, something on top. Really, innovation is what it's all about. It really is important.
Earlier you mentioned the use of technology. Yeah. Can you give some examples of how you can bring technology into the design?
Look, you can get amazing things. There's an event that they have in Germany where the whole of the sound system is powered by bikes. So they bring in solar, and then during the event, the festival, people are riding the bikes all the time, and this is making the technology work. They've got an unbelievable other one, which is you can watch on YouTube, where they've basically got the shapes of buildings and that, and as the guys are cycling, those shapes in colour are coming. Just fantastic. But everything in terms of the actual invitations, as we know, the collecting the data on it. If you're having a wedding thing and you start collecting all the things you like, so that when you do sit down, you can say, wow, look at all of these things that I thought were great, and they can just pick up some of those elements, because we are all influenced by what we see, what somebody else has done. But I think the opportunities the students have here, which is great, is all those events you have, the international events, the weddings, the different Miss HTMi, whatever those are, unbelievable. First, as a learning tool, but secondly, is it just gets their creative juices going. Even those who don't think they're creative. And it's just lovely to see people who start off shy And in literally no time, they're running out. I've seen huge difference between one of your event organisers from last year and her absolute confidence this year. You can see she's matured in terms of that. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it does allow them to, to be very creative, but, learn all the other skills, like you mentioned earlier, the marketing, the sponsorship, and so on.
The organisational skills, critical. The biggest asset for events is problem solving. I mean, the skill that we lack globally is problem solving, decision making, things like that. It seems to be a common thread running through. Yet on events, you're making those decisions all day, every day. Where should I place the bar? Who should do this? Who's going to be there? They say when you add it up, it's at least 2,000 decisions that the event organizer is making on the job. And, you think, wow, that sounds a lot, but it's not. By the time you think of all the decisions you make on your events, it's huge.
Correct. And some of them are really last minute, when you have a major crisis.
Most of them are last minute.
Yeah.
Most of them are last minute, yeah. But those changes, as we were saying to the students, it's about nobody else knows about the wires. Don't let people see the wires. You know that something wasn't right, but the guests don't usually know that it wasn't what you wanted. So it's no good saying, I'm sorry about this. I meant it to be pink, but in fact it's blue. Don't tell anybody about it in terms of that. Blue, I love blue. I wanted it to be blue,
Yeah, correct. And as long as the client and the guests are happy at the end of the day, they don't need to know what happens behind the scenes.
And that's why I said it's so important to photograph it, to draw it, to do the things like that. Because the one thing you don't want is an unhappy client on the day.
Correct.
Could kill everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd like to now go into the MBOK and the standards and the certification.
Well, exciting time in my life. I think 10 years ago, we started the process and had this dream of a global standard. And I remember sitting with Joe Goldblatt in Minneapolis, and he was saying, no, Janet, he says it's too different around the world. Our values are too different. Our ethics are too different. But he was great. We had Julia Rutherford-Silvers, we had Kathy Nelson there, and we said, let's try and have a start. And people like William O'Toole joined us, and Glenn Bowden, and Matthew Gonzalez, and in the second year, Philip Mondor from Canada joined us, and we got a framework based on what the work Julia had been doing. Julia Rutherford-Silvers did a great thing called the MBOK Project. Bill O'Toole was doing his master's on an MBOK, and as happens anywhere in the world, these things are happening, and then together by 2003, we had the first framework for MBOK. Phil Mondor from Canadian Tourism Human Resources Council joined us then, and they said, listen, this would be quite good for doing foreign credential recognition. So they then came for another 2 years. We had it in South Africa where we hosted it, and we had input from all our industry, from our government department, etc., and we got a great MBOK. And from that, the Canadian government then invested money, the federal government, and we got a standard. They brought in psychometricians who grilled us about, why did you ask this question, what is this here? And we've now got a certification at the highest level. So they already had one for event coordinators from 20 years ago, which they've updated along the way, event coordinator, event manager. Now we've got certified event management professional. And that's the kind of the one that you're going to be doing, which is basically saying that after all these years of experience, you know it, you've been doing it, etc., what we're looking for, particularly in countries like ours, they're looking for certification. The law says you need to show proof of competence that you can deliver, because if something happens, they want to be able to say you knew everything, you did the best that you can, and it might be an act of God when something blows down or whatever it is, but the bottom line is you are competent to deliver. So it's exciting times.
So from a student's point of view, for the event management students, for example, or other students here at HTMi, where do they start that certification?
I think the most important thing is that starting wherever you are is to keep your portfolio of evidence. In other words, every event you work on, whatever role it is you worked, whether you were working at the Congress and you were in the reception or you were doing the name badges, is really doing it and actually starting to get people like you to just sign it, stamp it, put a few comments and things like that. Because the first certification that they would do would be event coordinator, certified event coordinator. And that you need about 1,000 hours of experience. And basically, but that you can do it. The great thing about the standard is you get the standard, you look through it all, you say, yes, 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 I can do all of this. And then you do, that one is a multiple question, you go online and you do that. Once you get to the one then you get to event manager. And then once you get to certified event management professional, which is our baby, CEMP, that basically is you do a portfolio of evidence around the events that you do. So you take an event and you show you did the risk management, it's got particular sections, there's a multiple choice. But we do know from the rigor of when it was done is that you know that somebody who's past that can actually do it. And most people in the event industry can do it. They've been on autopilot for years. So now it was just a case of bringing it all together.
Right.
We're in South Africa working on a professional body at the moment, which the government wants, and that's really important. And this certification is great. So currently the last sort of piece that's missing is, with what we do in Canada, is they're going to put in a governance and accountability system, an administration system for it, which is really, really great. And then that's basically we're ready to rock and roll after 12 years.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So there is a huge benefit to, foreign students studying here within the events field, going back to their countries or working globally within the events industry.
And I just said to them, you have to maximize your language skills while you're here. I mean, the amazing thing is you think how many languages you've got being spoken all the time here. They're learning the English, they're learning the German, learn the French, speak the Mandarin, do whatever it is. But they are so lucky to have all of those. That makes them just invaluable in the industry, for events particularly.
Right. Yeah. I'd just like to finish off with one last question, talking about cultural diversity. Our students one day could be working in South Africa, in Switzerland, going back to Asia, going back to Europe. And, with a lot of the international events, you have people coming from many, many parts of the world. So how important is it, and perhaps advice to students, to have that understanding of cultural diversity?
I think it's critical, and you had a couple in the presentations of the students' papers in yesterday's conference, is that a number of them addressed the issue of cultural diversity. Critically important. So language, cultural diversity. And in fact, we, in the work that we're doing now, to this next level, which is the skills village side, is it's basically just saying is how do we make sure that everybody is equal, because that's what events are. We're all equal, doesn't matter what language. And I often say when somebody's stumbling to talk, I say, don't think that that man is thinking in English. No, he's thinking in Zulu. So he's thinking much faster in Zulu than he might be talking.
Right.
And I think that's really what comes through is you've got to be able to respect all of it. The more they learn on the international events, that's critical. The research into those international events is great. And luckily, you've got people from so many countries that they know when they sit in that Turkey event, they know it because they've been there. Right. And just for the other students to appreciate just how much detail there is, it's amazing.
Correct. It is a fascinating world.
It's fantastic.
Forever changing and forever growing.
And a fascinating place here. This is really beautiful. I mean, here where you come and you in this wonderful haven, it's in a protected environment, which is actually great. And people are able to deliver professional services here, which is super, in an environment that is not threatening. I think it's a perfect place, really great.
Janet, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting with you again. I always enjoy our talks, and we could go on for hours. And thank you very much for coming this time to HILAB and our research conference. And we look forward to seeing you back next year.
Absolutely. I must say it's great, and it gets better every year. Love your new academic team, really great.
Thanks a lot.
Lovely. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Super.